On my wedding day, I was abducted, imprisoned, and repeatedly assaulted, eventually becoming pregnant with the kidnapper's child. Shortly thereafter, I saw on television that my original fiancé, Ryan, had married his true love. The doctor informed me that my frail condition meant an abortion could impair future conceptions. In my desperation to terminate this unwanted pregnancy, Ethan held me and gently reassured me, even if only for your own health, I will treat this child as my own. Ethan did not scorn my defiled body and even accepted the child I carried, leading me to embrace his love and consent to his marriage proposal. Unbeknownst to me, at 9 months pregnant, I overheard a conversation between him and his brother. Now that she's about to give birth, you and Ivy can rest easy. Since Ivy loves you and I can't marry her, I at least want to ensure her happiness. Ryan, his voice hoarse with concern, asked, if she discovers that you were the one who kidnapped her, will she? Ethan replied faintly, she's about to become a mother, she won't cause trouble anymore. I owe her, and I'll spend my life making it up to her and the child. Ryan smirked, brother, you're truly ruthless, to manipulate a woman to the point of near infertility. She must have been tamed by you in bed. I was too gentle with her back then, I should have used harsher tactics. Ryan sneered, you're doting on her so much now, Ethan, I warn you, don't spoil a woman until she forgets her place. Ethan stated calmly, the doctor diagnosed Lena as physically weak, requiring careful prenatal care to prevent congenital defects in the fetus, or worse, a fatal outcome for both mother and child, so she must be well tended to. Ivy says she loves children but has never had the chance to have one, Ethan continued, pausing briefly as his eyelids lowered, a subtle glint flickering in his eyes. Moreover, having a child provides us with a fallback option. Ryan patted Ethan's shoulder and laughed heartily, you've thought of everything. If she ever uncovers the truth and turns against us, we can still use this child to control her. Will she seek revenge or prioritize a complete family for the child? As for children, Ivy and I are already trying. Ethan said, a fleeting sadness crossing his eyes before being swiftly concealed. My mind buzzed as a chilling sensation engulfed me, as if I'd plunged into an icy abyss. Only then did I uncover the truth that I had fallen for the cheerful Ryan and pleaded with my father to let me marry him. Coincidentally, the Sue family sought to leverage our family status, and Margaret was highly pleased, forcing Ryan to marry me, which led to my calculated abduction and subsequent unwed pregnancy. My father, ashamed of my disgrace, insisted Ryan marry me. I never imagined that under his pressure, events would spiral into this outcome. Upon learning the truth, my sole desire was to escape. Cradling my belly, I staggered into the room, numb and breathless, collapsing in despair. Despair, anger, sadness, hatred, and heartache churned within me. The sight of our photo on the nightstand grew increasingly unbearable. In the photo, I gazed at him with a tender smile, my heart and eyes wholly his, while he looked affectionately toward the camera, where Ivy was photographing us. I once thought his averted gaze was shyness, but now I realized he never intended to look at me, a bitter irony that ignited a surge of unnamed fury within me. I seized nearby scissors and stabbed the photo viciously, shredding it before tearing it down and smashing the frame to the ground. With a loud crash, glass shattered, slicing my palm, and crimson blood oozed out. The door burst open as Ethan rushed in. Upon hearing the noise, seeing the scattered glass and my bleeding hand, he hurriedly fetched gauze, exclaiming, "What happened? How could you be so careless?" I lowered my eyes, striving to keep my voice calm. I accidentally broke it. Ethan bandaged my wound with tender concern, murmuring, "How could you be so careless? Does it hurt? Don't do this again," his meticulous care seeming almost genuine. After treating the wound, Ethan brought a bowl of duck soup from the kitchen, the result of 6 hours of simmering since early morning, the meat tender and boneless. He thoughtfully removed the bones and pitted the dates, forgetting I disliked them, while I watched him coldly as he remained oblivious, lost in my presumed gratitude. Ethan placed the soup on the coffee table, scooped a spoonful, cooled it with a gentle blow, and offered it to me, saying, "Drink some to nourish yourself." Seeing his caring gaze, I once might have thought, with such a husband, what more could a wife desire, but now, his feigned concern only nauseated me. Indeed, no one in this world offers kindness without motive, as all actions leave traces. I recalled the relentless torment of my abduction, the the longest starvation lasting 7 days without a drop of water, coupled with ceaseless humiliation and abuse. Noticing my pallor and inability to eat, Ethan assumed I was shaken. He leaned down, gently touched my forehead, tucked stray hair behind my ear, and asked with apparent distress, "What's wrong? You look so pale." Without hesitation, he supported me to take me to the hospital, seating me in the passenger side and fastening a maternity seatbelt. Just as we neared the hospital, his phone rang abruptly. While driving, he activated the speakerphone, and Ryan's frantic shout echoed through. "Ivy fainted and hit her head. Where the hell are you? Come help." "What?" "I'm on my way," he replied, his usually composed voice rising involuntarily. After hanging up, he slammed on the brakes without hesitation, parking roadside. He unbuckled swiftly, turned to me with eyes devoid of prior warmth, only urgency and dismissiveness remaining, saying, "Ivy's in an emergency, I must go now. The hospital's just ahead. Walk a few steps for your checkup, I'll find you after I'm done." He urged, "Get out quick, I need to check on Ivy." Supporting my belly, I struggled out of the car, and it sped off with a roar. The moment I did, utterly disillusioned, I stared coldly at the receding vehicle, thinking, when it comes to Ivy, you don't even bother pretending anymore, do you? Without options, there's no comparison, but once a choice arises, I'm never first in your heart. In Ethan's world, I'll always be outshone by Ivy. Two brothers, one bold and exuberant, the other reserved and profound, their love mirroring their temperaments. Regrettably, their love was never for me. The vibrant Ryan plunged me into endless gloom, my heart brimming with suppression and grievance, while the stoic Ethan, whom I naively saw as my divine savior, instead cast me into a deeper abyss. Truly, no one in this world offers kindness without cause, every action traceable. For love, it was all merely for me. Clutching my belly, I hailed a taxi and purchased an international flight ticket. I would indeed visit a hospital, not for a prenatal checkup, but to schedule an abortion abroad. In the hospital corridor, the sharp scent of disinfectant rekindled memories of my abduction. Initially, I fiercely resisted each assault, but to break my spirit, they stripped me bare, bound my wrists, and hung me from a beam, heels off the ground, toes barely touching, starved and dehydrated, my back crisscrossed with whip marks. When Ethan rescued and brought me to the hospital, I had already slipped into unconsciousness. The sole memory that lingered was this acrid disinfectant smell, a trauma that haunts me still, while Ethan remains utterly unrepentant. Ivy was carried to the hospital by the brothers. When I sought them, Ryan was handling payments and prescriptions, while Ethan tended to Ivy tirelessly. I stood at the door, hesitating long before softly calling, "Ethan." He turned at my voice, his gaze settling on me with worry whether genuine or not. I couldn't discern, asking, "How was your hospital visit today? What did the doctor say?" As he approached quickly, brow furrowed, his tone thick with apparent concern. "The doctor said there's nothing wrong," I replied, and he lowered his voice, "I'm sorry, Ivy's sudden accident today kept me from accompanying you," his tone laden with apology before his eyes darted back to Ivy on the bed. I understood he feared I'd disturb Ivy. I gripped 2 documents in my hand, one a divorce agreement, the other a consent form for the abortion. I turned to the signature pages of both documents and handed them to him with a pen, saying, "The hospital requires a family member's signature for scheduling the delivery." Ethan didn't even look up, snatched the pen, and signed swiftly, as if every extra moment I lingered disrupted his time with Ivy. Leaving the hospital, I realized I felt trapped in a bitter quagmire, drained of strength. The night was deep, the vast house empty save for me, its silence eerily reminiscent of the dark cell where I was held captive. I later learned Ivy was also pregnant. That day, her fainting stemmed from pregnancy-related appetite loss causing low blood sugar, prompting my mother-in-law to rush from her hometown upon hearing the news. "I hear you're pregnant, Ivy. What joyous news. The Sue family has an heir," my mother-in-law exclaimed, unloading various local goods and bustling in the kitchen. Ivy, tended to daily by the pair, grew rosy and much improved, saying, "Yes, Mom. Let my sister-in-law have more later," filling the Sue family with descendants. My mother-in-law cast a sidelong glance, spitting audibly without restraint, raising her voice as if to ensure I heard, "Only Ethan doesn't mind filth, taking any woman even with a brat in her belly, who knows what it'll turn out to be. The doctor said her young body's wrecked, pregnant without knowing the father, and it's uncertain if she can even deliver, she added. Before, when she heard Ethan would marry me, my mother-in-law vehemently opposed it, a stray bastard from who knows where, and you'd play cheap father to someone else's kid? This marriage, if it happens, will end. Now, with the divorce finalized, her wish was fulfilled. The meal prepared, Ivy offered help but was stopped by my mother-in-law. Your body's not fully recovered, go sit on the sofa, Lena's help here is enough. Then she shouted to me in the living room, we don't keep freeloaders in this house, if you want food, come serve it yourself. When the Sue brothers offered aid, she snapped, what man enters the kitchen, stopping short of maiming me outright. I struggled to move, the kitchen mere steps from the table. My mother-in-law busied herself serving dishes as they began eating. Only after the last was placed did I notice every dish was laden with cilantro. It sent piercing my senses despite the family knowing I couldn't stomach it. I picked at my rice twice before setting down my chopsticks, prompting an instant scowl from her, still acting like a princess, picky about this and that. You're eating thanks to Ivy's grace. I don't know what Ethan saw in you to marry you back then. Ryan chuckled maliciously beside her, probably her buy one get one deal. I nearly got that bargain, but thankfully I have Ivy now. I glanced at the culprit, Ethan, engrossed in serving Ivy, oblivious to all else, as she cooed provocatively at me, Mom, how did you know these are my favorite dishes? You're so good to me, I'll definitely give you a chubby grandson. Ryan chimed in sarcastically, sister-in-law, this is your failing, look at my wife, that's how to manage a home. She pleases Mom, you should learn. Everyone, quiet down, why so much talk about Lena? Ethan interjected, exasperated. I'll cook something else for you later, wife, make do for now, he said, serving me a pig trotter and picking out the cilantro. I accepted silently, wondering if he meant to silence me with food. Oh, pregnancy is such a trial, no appetite all day, and I fainted from low blood sugar a few days ago. Thanks to Ethan's help, Ivy whined theatrically, resting a hand on his shoulder and inching closer, Ryan's eyes darkening as he watched. I say, Ethan, just focus on your wife, with Mom here now, we've enough hands, so relax, Ryan said, swatting Ivy's hand off Ethan's shoulder. I stroked my belly, watching them coldly, muttered about nausea, and returned to my room, locking Ethan out as he followed. I faintly heard him defending me, raising his voice deliberately perhaps for my benefit, but I cared little. Tomorrow, I'd finally leave, for the abortion. The next day, Ethan and Ryan took Ivy for a checkup, leaving me alone. Ivy sent me a message with a photo, Ryan driving ahead, while she and Ethan held hands. Lena, so what if both men were with you? They're mine now, they'd been with me at the hospital all morning, and I couldn't even shoo Ethan away, she taunted, and I forwarded the photo to Ryan. While tidying, I stumbled upon an electronic safe in Ethan's study. Using Ivy's birthday, I tried 3 times and, astonishingly, unlocked it. Inside was an outdated camcorder. Curious about such an antique still in use, I powered it on. It contained videos of the brothers as children with family, frequently featuring a girl resembling Ivy, about 7 or 8 years old. Ryan and Ethan, a mere year apart, became playmates in their early, impressionable years. Yet the final video had a black thumbnail, dated last August. Driven by curiosity, I played it, only to witness footage of myself being assaulted while unconscious. Amid the chaotic audio, one line stood out sharply, recorded, I'll see what this wretch has to compete with me for Ryan. Ethan, don't just watch, do it. Ivy's voice, unmistakable. Struck as if by lightning, my blood surged uncontrollably. I couldn't fathom the reality of this revelation. Was this a conspiracy between Ivy and Ethan, or was Ryan involved too? Did he know from the start, or did Ivy confess later? Trembling, I left the divorce papers, took the camcorder, and hailed a taxi to the airport. Nearing it, Ethan called, Ivy's fine, I'll be back soon, wife, I miss you so much. Then hurry back, I said, hanging up and switching my phone to airplane mode. I knew Ryan had barred him from tending Ivy further, sending him back. Others might not know, but Ethan was fully aware whose child it was, and lately, preoccupied with Ivy, he'd indeed neglected me. He even detoured to buy white fungus, red dates, lotus seeds, and brown sugar water, planning to nourish me that evening. Pushing the door open and calling twice with no response, His eyes fell on the divorce agreement on the table, its stark black and white text glaringly evident. Flipping to the last page, his bold signature from Ivy's illness stood out. In that moment, Ethan felt an unprecedented loss of control and inexplicable tension, hesitating before my door, knocking, then tremblingly pushing it open when no answer came. Opening the door, his hopeful heart sank. I was gone, the ring he'd given me lay intact in the trash, my clothes and photos vanished, even the bedside doll missing, the room so vacant it was as if I'd never existed there. Ethan suddenly realized something, bolting to the study and unlocking the safe, confirming the camcorder's absence, murmuring, "She knows, she must know the truth," as he collapsed, pale and trembling. He'd clearly tried so hard to be good to me, just a little more, and he'd have welcomed a lovely child, while Ivy and Ryan could live happily with their own. Now, all was ruined. He'd once considered confessing the truth to me, that he'd genuinely fallen for me later, hoping for forgiveness but lacked the courage to risk it. During my captivity and torment, his heart had brimmed with pity, softening at times. Yet, for Ivy's happiness, he'd steeled himself, initially planning to use the recording to threaten me. He hadn't anticipated my pregnancy with his child, and with Ivy and Ryan wed, he thought it might work out, aiming to atone and treat me well for the rest of his life. Over time, he grew accustomed to my endurance, caring for me, uncertain if it was love, but undeniably a habit. He hadn't expected my departure to leave him with such loss and emptiness. Unable to reach me by phone and failing to find me, he called Ivy. "The tape's gone. Lena, she's vanished, and the recording too," suppressing his mounting panic. Ivy's reaction over the line exceeded Ethan's expectations, her screams piercing. "What? Lena's gone? The tape too? She knows?" Her voice quickened with panic, laced with anger and fear. "How the hell did you screw this up? How could you let her find out? You think I wanted this? Who knew she'd uncover it?" Ethan retorted. Ivy fell silent, then her faint voice emerged. My stomach hurts," followed by cold sweat and collapse, clutching her belly with signs of miscarriage. Seeing this, Ryan erupted, snatching the phone and bellowing, "Clean up your mess fast, or we're all done. Ivy's in trouble, I need to get her to the hospital. Handle Lena yourself first." "What's wrong with Ivy? Speak." The call ended with a dial tone, Ethan staring at the phone, veins pulsing on his forehead. Damn it, he hurled the phone against the wall, shattering the screen and ejecting the battery, then crouched in agony, pounding his head, overwhelmed by unprecedented helplessness. He knew the priority was locating me, and after extensive inquiries, he learned I'd left the country. He went to the hospital to strategize with Ryan, who was fetching medicine. Ivy lay weakly abed, pallid. The doctor explained that severe emotional distress had triggered uterine contractions, causing a miscarriage, requiring subsequent emotional care. Gazing at this woman he once cherished, Ethan's mind conjured my image, wondering how I fared, still pregnant. Almost instinctively, he checked his phone for missed messages and tried calling again, to no avail. Sensing someone near, Ivy struggled to open her eyes, saw Ethan, and grabbed his hand, eyes red and voice hoarse with tears. "Ethan, the tape, the child, almost lost." Seeing Ivy thus, my image flooded his mind. Me, also pregnant, child's fate unknown. Ethan couldn't resist embracing her, soothing, "We've traced Lena's exit records, don't worry." Ryan entered just then, witnessing this, recalling past events. He blazed with fury, lunged forward, shoved Ethan aside, and slapped him hard. Slap. Ethan's cheek swelled instantly, blood tinging his mouth, as Ryan, eyes bloodshot, roared, "Ethan, what's this mean? You dare covet my woman?" Ethan wiped his mouth, sneered, met Ryan's gaze with icy eyes, and retaliated with a punch to his face, the heavy blow striking his cheekbone with a dull thud, sending Ryan staggering back into the table's edge. Wiping blood from his lip, Ethan mocked, "Your woman? Huh, without me, would she be yours?" His lips curled slightly as his gaze shifted between Ivy and Ryan, saying pointedly, "Without her urging back then, you think I'd have done it? You really believe she's innocent?" "Shut up!" Ryan bellowed, landing another punch. Ivy, eyes brimming red, trembled, "Are you mad?" "Had enough fighting?" struggling to stand between them. She tried to pull Ryan back, but he, consumed by rage, didn't notice her, pushing her aside with a bang. Ivy lost balance, fell hard, a tearing pain ripping through her abdomen, her lips quivering as she tried to speak. The next moment, warm liquid gushed between her legs, a shocking sight, as Ryan and Ethan cried, "Ivy," in unison. Ryan's mind exploded with a boom, rushing to support her. "Ivy. What's wrong?" My stomach hurts so much," she gasped. A nurse rushed in, paling at the blood pooling on the floor. "She's miscarried. Quick to the operating room." Miscarried? Ryan's head buzzed as he watched Ivy wheeled away. Ethan stood aside, gazing complexly at the blood. "Happy now, Ryan?" He left, pausing at the door to explain, "I'm going after Lena. I came to discuss this. Take good care of Ivy." After landing, I turned on my phone. Hundreds of messages and missed calls flashed, ignored as I headed straight to the hospital. The surgery succeeded, though my body weakened further. Seeing the child's severed remains, I broke into uncontrollable sobs. After enduring so long at home, this release surged like a flood. I meticulously gathered the child's remains, preserving them as a specimen, sealing it tightly. In the jar, the fetus curled as it had in the womb, never born. I attached a card. "Ethan, this is your child. See for yourself how lovely he is." Days later, a familiar ringtone chimed like a symphony. Ethan's name blazed on the screen, and I stared at it, a cold smirk tugging at my lips. Pressing answer, before I could speak, Ethan's roar tore through. "Lena. Are you insane?" I chuckled. "This is your child, don't you like it?" His breaths grew rapid, heavy with gasps, followed by the sound of breaking glass. "You're too cruel," his voice rasped. "This harms your body. It's not worth it for revenge," laden with sorrow, as if weeping. "Cruel? That word from your mouth?" I sneered. "Don't play compassionate here to polish your image. Compared to your deeds, this is nothing, just returning what you gave me." "Lena, I was wrong. Seeing the child, I truly regretted it. Can you give me another chance? Let's reconcile. I'll treat you sincerely this time," he pleaded. I hung up and blocked his number. This was merely the start, not the end. I checked into a postpartum center to recuperate, unaware that mailing a package would expose my location. Ethan tracked me down, appearing as I sipped soup in bed. Hearing a knock, I assumed it was a nurse and said, "Come in," only to see him at the doorway, gaunt cheeks sunken, lips cracked, dark circles sagging. "You," I gasped, spilling soup onto the white sheets. Ethan, as if jolted awake, rushed forward. "Did you burn yourself?" His voice anxious, he reached to help, but I recoiled instinctively, dodging his hand. He froze, then withdrew with an awkward, bitter smile. "How did you find me?" I asked. Ethan, hunched and unshaven, resembled a jittery old man. "I've searched for you half a month, sleepless nightly, regretting, thinking of our child." "Shut up," I snapped, my tone sharp as a blade. Silenced, he watched as I steadied myself and pressed the bedside call button. Moments later, a nurse hurried in. My hand shook. "Spilling the soup, please change the sheet," I said. She nodded quickly, then glanced at Ethan. "This gentleman is." "He's leaving, escort him out," I cut in, my voice chilling. Ethan stared at me, lips trembling, as the nurse, sensing tension, silently changed the sheet, while he stood, caught between staying and going. He bowed his head, fingers clenching then releasing, before kneeling by the bed, rasping, "I just want to beg forgiveness." "Huh, you think I'd trust you? You just want the tape back," I said icily. "I've made multiple copies. Give up." "No," he blurted instinctively, "your body's not recovered. I don't need you." I interrupted again, colder still. "Are you here for Ivy again, fearing the tape's leak would harm her? How can anyone love another to such depths, shameless to such extremes?" I exclaimed. "I don't need your crocodile tears or your presence. Leave." The nurse, finished with the sheet, politely asked Ethan, "Sir, will you leave?" His throat bobbed as he gave me a deep, complex look. Sensing the unease, she added respectfully, "Miss Lena, call security anytime if needed," before closing the door and exiting. "I spared you embarrassment just now, don't push it," I said. "Ethan, you're a beast, as are Ivy, Ryan, your mother, your whole family's rotten. I won't let this go." the pain you've caused me, I'll repay bit by bit, no, 100, 1,000-fold. Ethan crawled to my bedside, grabbed my hand, and frantically slapped his own face. Hit me, curse me if it eases you, I sincerely regret it, I was wrong, Lena. I'm a beast, less than a dog, I was blinded by Ivy's sway back then, I know I wronged you. When you left, I searched like a madman, telling myself at first it was for the tape. But later, seeing the child's body, I realized I'd lost you completely. I panicked, scoured for you, and only then saw I cared, that I can't live without you. Pausing as if struck by a thought, he said, Lena, I made a small tombstone for our child, we can visit it. I'll take you back, nourish you, we'll have more children. Right, Ivy, that vile woman, goaded and used me, she got her due with a miscarriage. I swear I'll cut ties with her, I'll block her now. He fumbled for his phone, but I shouted, enough. Lena, come back with me, please? Let me atone for your pain. If you don't want to see my mom or Ryan, I'll live here with you, or anywhere you choose, I'll cook for you, restore your health. Please, forgive me, I'll do anything, trust me, he begged. I said enough. I raised my voice again, hurling the soup bowl, striking Ethan's head. Soup dripped from his hair, mingling with blood. Without my ordeal of captivity, torture, and violation, I might have softened, but his pitiful act now paled against a fraction of my past suffering. Compassion is for humans, not beasts. His forte, feigning pathos and affection, his skilled performance had once deceived me. Had they confessed early that both Sue brothers loved Ivy, I'd never have insisted. Such a facade of devotion and reform, who'd suspect without living it? Alas, the one who trusted once has died already, his face now only sickens me. Ethan, your relentless clinging is futile. I've given the tape to the police, your crimes will face justice. As for your guilty deeds, divine eyes watch above. Ivy's miscarriage is apt retribution. Your mother dreams of descendants? Pfft. The Sue line will end. I don't want you near me, not this life, nor the next, nor ever get as far away as possible. Ethan knelt by the bed, head bowed, letting me vent through blows and curses, unmoving as blood from his forehead dripped into his eyes, tracing 2 bloody tears. Leave, or I'll call security to drag you out. Get out, I sobbed and roared, hurling the pillow with all my strength. Ethan stared blankly, then gave a wretched smile. Don't cry, I'll go, rising and walking out with slow, heavy steps. As the door shut, I noticed I'd been clenching the sheet, fingertips whitening. His footsteps faded down the hall until they vanished. Later, I learned Ivy and Ethan's closeness had pierced Ryan's heart like a thorn, prejudice weighed on him like a mountain, and he and Ivy grew to despise and blame each other. Ryan, face ashen, glared at Ivy. I thought Ethan was the mastermind, never suspected you, a seemingly frail yet venomous woman. Ivy sneered, think you're pure? You used Lena for her family's power, pressured by your mother. You never loved her, just exploited her. How are you better? Ultimately, their clash ended in divorce. I submitted the recording not only to the police but also to the media, with a detailed report and clips, ensuring rapid, widespread exposure. It exploded across social platforms, igniting public outrage. Netizens raged, holy crap. This plot outdoes soap operas, reality trumps fiction in absurdity. Are the Sue brothers mad? Ivy's the true schemer, inciting rape against a fiancé? This can't be excused. Ethan still begging forgiveness is nauseating, they said, as police swiftly arrested the Sue brothers and Ivy. Margaret, upon learning the truth, collapsed. That night, she suffered a stroke and was hospitalized. Due to intense public focus, the trial streamed live across platforms. Sue brothers Lena case trial topping trending searches. Seeing the 3 in court again, I found peace. All looked worn, Ivy's gaze turning icy with resentment as she glared at me fiercely. With irrefutable video evidence, days of torment, and recent online vitriol, she finally broke down completely. She leapt up, pointing at Ethan, screaming hysterically, "This was all your idea. You told me I'd never have Ryan unless Lena was ruined. You locked her up, tortured her, not me." Her venomous stare fixed on Ethan, nearly unhinged, while he sat numbly, unresponsive, his mournful eyes locked on me. Hearing Ivy roar, "Didn't you love her? Yet you ruined her for me. Your love's cheap. His lifeless eyes flared with anger. Shut up. Ivy's shrill laughter rang out, eyes wild. Ha ha ha. Who violated Lena Daly? Who told me back then that, pregnant, she'd accept her fate even knowing the truth? Shaking, she pointed at him. It was you. Ivy had lost all sanity. The verdict declared Ivy and Ethan principal offenders, Ryan an accomplice, Ivy charged with intentional harm and illegal detention, Ethan with the same, Ryan with aiding and concealing, multiple crimes compounded, the gavels fall shattering Ethan's world. Later, I heard Ethan went mad in prison, clutching the child's photo day and night, muttering, Lena, child, let's go home. His cellmates sneered at his deranged state. Is he nuts? Still babbling about a wife who long disowned him? Ivy fared poorly in prison, I heard. Entering detention, she realized true hell awaited, greeted by cold inmates. Newbie? Heard she's a schemer who got a fiancé raped? Someone sneered, pinning her to the wall with a harsh shove. She sought help, but this wasn't the outside. Her cries only drew more humiliation, tasting the pain I'd endured. With all settled, I visited the spot Ethan claimed he'd tombed our child. The scenery was serene. I caressed the stone, sighing, the child was innocent after all. If you can forgive me, choose me as your mother in the next life. Years later, once frail and infertile, I joyfully became a mother. Wife, didn't you say you were child-free? My husband asked, eyes sparkling. Did I? I forgot, I replied, gently stroking my belly, vowing, this time, I'll protect you, ensuring you grow up safe and happy.